Welcome back. This is the fourth episode, and now we'll be making our first game, guessing the number. In the beginning of this video, I'll start explaining the mechanics of the game. It's pretty simple. And after we get a hold of the mechanics of the game, I challenge you to code it on your own. And then I will code it in front of you guys and go through all the codings of it. Now let's dive right in. So I made an overview of the entire game. So starting off, the program is gonna generate a random number and store it in a variable. And step 2, it's gonna ask the user for a user input. And then step 3, it's gonna have a loop, and then it's gonna loop until the input is correct. And within the loop, it's gonna tell the user if their input is higher or lower than the answer, so give them a hint. And then it's gonna get the new input and rinse and repeat. When the user finally gets it correct, the program will end. So basically this is a pretty simple game, guessing the number. And I'll show you how to generate a random number and how to ask for user input. And after that, I challenge you to make the program on your own using loop and if statements. Now let's get into the code. In order to generate a random number, we have to use a math class. So we haven't talked about class yet, and I'll talk to you guys about classes later on in the series. For now, I'll just show you how to call the math class. So let's start off with making an integer variable called random num, and let's set it equal to a random number. Now what we have to do, we have to call the math class, and then we have to get the function called random, and this function will generate a random number between 0 and 1. You see there's a red line right here. That's because it will return a decimal number in the form of double. So in order to make this into an integer, we have to cast it into an integer. It's called typecasting. But we want a number that is between 0 and 100. So what we have to do is that we have to multiply the math.random by 100, and then we have to cast the result into integer by putting math.random times 100 into a parentheses and putting integer into a parentheses in front of math.random. Now this will generate a random number between 0 and 100, and let's print it out. And let's run it. 68. Well, now let me show you how to ask for user input. So to ask for user input, we will have to import from the library an object called scanner. So what we have to do, we have to import java.util.scanner. So what is that exactly? Okay, so when you download Eclipse and any other Java IDE in general, it will come with a Java library that is built in. And the library contains a lot of functions, like Java utility, short for utility, as well as other cool stuff like Swing, which does graphics, and OpenGL. Now, what this does right here is that it's importing the Java and then getting the util files and then getting the scanner object within. And now, what do we need to use for the scanner? Well, what we need to do, we need to create a scanner object that scans the user input, and then say scanner input equals new scanner system.in. So it might look complicated right now and you don't know what scanner input means, basically I'll talk about this in the class episode. However, what I can tell you right now is that scanner is kind of like a variable, just like integer. So now what we gotta do is that we pass in the system.int into the scanner so that the scanner can read what we are typing into the console. Now let's store our input into a variable. Let's call it input num equals scanner dot next int. My bad, not scanner. Input dot next int. Now you see right here, it's next int because we're asking for an integer value. We can also change this into other kind. For a string, for example, we would just do next. For double, we would just do next double. And basically, there's other ways to get other kind of data type as well. But for now, we were going to use next int. And now, let's print it out. Okay, so input num. Now let's run the program and see. It started off generating a random number. And now what we have to do is that we have to type in a number. Let's just type in 100. And now the computer prints out 100 because it reads in our input and then it stores it in input num and then it prints it out. So now you know how to generate a number as well as getting a user input. I challenge you to code guess the number on your own. You can pause the video now and then code it on your own, and I'll go over it in a minute. Now let's start off generating the number first. So integer, let's call it random num again, equals to math.random multiplied by 100, and then we have to put this in parentheses so that, and then we have to put the int in front of it. And now we have a random number generated, and let's add in some user guide so that we can guide the user so they will know what they're doing. So let's start with hi, I am thinking about a number between 0 and 100. Can you guess it? And then we have to move on to step 2, which we have to ask for a user input. So we have to first create a scanner object and name it input. Use scanner. And then what we have to do is that we have to get the input. Let's tell the user to enter a number. Tell me enter a number. And then we can store that number into user input equals input dot next int. Now let's create a while loop. So the condition will be that the loop will end if the user's number or the user input equals to random num. So what we have to do is that we have to say that so while user input is not random number, the loop will run. So if this is true, then the loop will continue to run. And once the user input equals to random num, this will be false and the program will end. So now let's give the user a hint. So let's say if user input it's less than random num, then what we have to tell the user that it is too low. And then if it's not the case, then well, it has to be greater than. Too high. And now in the end it will say system.out. Well, before we do the end, we have to update the user input because the user have to continue enter the input until they enter the correct. But we wouldn't need to declare a new variable. We would just use the same one and then set it equal to a new user input. And then in the end, we would just tell the user once they get it correct that congrats, you got it. And now this is the program. Now let's run it. Okay, I'll try to guess your number. Let's start with 50. Well, it's too low. 75. It's too high now. Okay, maybe 60. It's too low. 70. It's too high. 65. Oh, well, I guess I'm pretty good at it. It's 5 tries, but that's pretty good. Now, I got kind of lucky, to be honest, but so basically this is the program. This is the first game that you created, and congrats, you got the program. And now what I want to do that I think it would make you an even better programmer is that you can further this project by adding a new feature that the program will continue run until the user say I don't want to play anymore. So basically what I meant by that is that the started off the game is going to be asking the user guess the number, and once they get it correct, the program will not end, but it would ask the user for but it will ask the user if they want to continue to play the game, and if they want to continue to play the game, they will generate a new number and then continue to play the game until the user say no, I don't want to play the game anymore. I challenge you to make that happen and on your own, and this is the episode. Thank you. Stay tuned for the future episode. In the next episode, we will be talking about functions, and stay tuned for that, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.